You're listening to Keystone Cold Cases, a podcast where we reignite cold cases across Pennsylvania.
Hey, it's Shan.
Hi, it's Shannon.
Hey, it's Melissa, and you are listening to Keystone Cold Cases, where we discuss true crimes from our home state of Pennsylvania, aka the Keystone State. So we have a patron to shout out today, Ellen from Phoenixville. Thank you. You're awesome. We love you. Everyone else, we do have a Patreon, $5 a month. It's the funnest thing ever. And we recently started our YouTube channel, and we are at Keystone Cold Cases, so check it out. And that's all I got. So if you guys don't have anything else, I think we should get started because this is a long one. All right, so today I'm going to be covering the unsolved murder of Dolores Della Penna. I definitely want to start out with a couple trigger warnings. This case is incredibly brutal. There is torture, there is sexual assault of a minor, and the murder and dismemberment of a minor. So if that's not something you feel like you can handle, we get it, and we will see you in the next episode. So I actually can't believe that this hasn't been covered on this pod yet, because it's like considered one of Philadelphia's like most wild unsolved murders. And it's been going on since 1972. So our case takes place in July of 1972 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And for 17-year-old Dolores Della Penna, this summer should have been like the beginning of the rest of her life. She had recently graduated from St. Hubert's High School, and she was enjoying the last few weeks of childhood before she started college in the fall. And as we all know, this time in a teenager's life can be super stressful. You have to make all these huge life decisions when just a few weeks ago, you had to ask your teacher for permission before being allowed to go to the bathroom. So I'm like, how does that make sense? But you know what? For our girl here, Dolores, this was a super exciting time in her life. She was young. She was absolutely beautiful. And she had a goal for her future. And this girl had a plan to make it happen. She was going to become an x-ray technician. She had been accepted into a program at Nazareth Hospital. And she was scheduled to start that fall, just a few weeks away.
That's so cool.
That is cool.
Well, and get this is even cooler. So Dolores had a lot of back problems. That is not the cool part. But she had a lot of back problems when she was younger, and she had to get a whole bunch of x-rays. And that's part of the reason she chose to make radiography her career. And she went to Nazareth Hospital when she had all those problems. So that's where she's going to go to school. That's where she was a patient. I feel, isn't that so cool? I always feel when a healthcare worker goes into a field that they're truly passionate about, that just makes all the difference and makes for the best bedside manner.
Yeah, because you've been in those shoes. You're so understanding.
Right? You're I totally remember being in that pain. It just makes you makes the patient feel better, I feel like. So, from all accounts, Dolores was an intelligent young woman. She was going to do great things with her life. But unfortunately, her life was snuffed out in the most brutal fashion. And to this day, and we are in January 2025, her killer or killers have never been brought to justice. So, let's talk about our victim, Dolores Marie Della Penna. She was born on December 13th, 1954, to proud parents Ralph and Helen Ann Della Penna. Dolores was the youngest of two children. She did have an older brother, Ralph Jr. And at this point in their lives, Ralph Jr. was married and no longer living in the family home. And the Della Penna family lived in the Tacony neighborhood of Northeast Philadelphia. And at the time, it was a really close-knit blue-collar neighborhood. And it was pretty safe. It was just a nice place to grow up. And just to give you an idea where it is geographically, it's part of the northeast section or neighborhood of Philly. It's right above Frankfort and right below Holmesburg. It's super close to 95 in the Delaware River, above all the strip clubs. So According to multiple sources, 17-year-old Dolores was a really, really good kid, and she was absolutely gorgeous. So I could only find black and white pictures of her, but she gave me, like, when I saw her face, she was giving me, like, a younger Lena Dunham meets Selma Blair circa her Legally Blonde days. Like, that's kind of what I got. I put a picture up, but, like, do you guys see it?
Yes.
Right? That was, like, as soon as I looked at her.
You're always so specific, and it's always so spot on. Like, she's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
That's, like, my one talent. It's not anything useful, but I could travel around with, like, a freak show and be like, you look like blah, blah, blah. So her eyes and her hair and her eyes are really dark, like Selma, but, like, her facial features are very similar to Lena.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nose.
Yeah.
Right?
And, like, the eyes.
It took me a little bit to find, like, a picture of a younger Lena Dunham, but, like, once I found it, I was like, oh, that's perfect. And then I debated between if this was circa Cruel Intentions days or Legally Blonde, and I went with Legally Blonde.
Fair.
So, in addition to being gorgeous, Dolores was incredibly bright. She graduated with honors from her high school, and she just seemed like one of those kids who, like, always did the right thing. Like, her parents would say she was, quote, kind, obedient, and a family-oriented girl, end quote. So, like, for example, Dolores would get home before her parents, like, when they were working Monday through Friday. She would straighten up the entire house, and then she would cook, like, a full dinner just to be able to, like, serve it when her parents, like, walked in the door from work.
Aw.
Right? She sounded like the perfect daughter.
I'll do that for my husband.
Yeah, same. That's some first daughter energy, though, if I've ever heard it.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. But I was reading that, and I was like, this girl is, like, so perfect.
I barely even cook for myself.
I know. I cook for my dogs, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, nobody is perfect, and if Dolores did have any fault, it was definitely her choice in friends and her choice in hangouts. Sources talked about how she would hang out in some rough areas around Kensington. Some of the people she was known to hang out with were drug users, although almost everyone said that Dolores never touched drugs, and anyone who said different was kind of like, well, she may have smoked weed once, maybe at a party, I'm not sure. Like, so if she did, it was like maybe hitting a blunt once or twice, and that was it. So it's clear she wasn't into that scene, but like I said, many of her friends were, and unfortunately for Dolores, this ended up being like an extreme case of the saying in the Linkin Park song, guilty by association, meaning that you are who you surround yourself with, whether you want to be or not.
Yeah.
So we're back in the summer of 1972. Dolores is ready to have a good time that summer. You know, she had worked hard for the last 12 years of school, but specifically the last 4 years in high school. Like I said, she got honors, like she worked hard, and she knew that this would be her last summer of freedom before she was an air quotes grown up. Which, I mean, I'm 37. I'm still waiting to feel like a grown up.
Yeah, I don't think that happens for real.
Yeah,
I feel like
either.
I feel like sometimes I look around like, where's the grown up? And I'm like, oh shoot, it's me.
It's
okay.
me.
I'm the adult here. God, okay.
We just do
that's
grown
the
up
worst
things,
realization.
but we don't project grown up energy.
Not at all.
Exactly. We really don't. Well, like any good Philadelphian, Dolores and a few girlfriends decided to hit the Jersey Shore. And they decided to get like a bungalow apartment for the summer. And Dolores' parents, this is so sweet, they offered to pay her rent for the summer, like as her graduation gift. So, you know, they were just so proud of her and so proud of like what a responsible, caring, kind, considerate, and beautiful young woman she had become. And so she and her friends rented a place in Wildwood Crest on Forget-Me-Not Road. And they really intended to take like full advantage of the sun, sand, and surf.
This
That
is a
sounds
very
like the perfect summer.
yeah.
Right?
It's a very Philly thing to do. Like I know
Oh,
so
yeah.
many people that did that. My brother did it one summer. With my cousins got the house. They got jobs down there and just live their best
That
life.
sounds amazing. Yep. Well, unfortunately, things did not work out that way. And this next part, so it's unclear to me whether Dolores was aware that these friends/roommates were drug users before she decided to live with them, or like if she found out about it, once they were together and in close quarters. But I also read that she was supposed to be renting this place with like 3 really good girlfriends, but 2 of them had to cancel last minute. And the replacement roommates were more like acquaintances of Dolores's, not really friends. And they were the ones into the drugs. So I kind of feel like that one's closer to the truth, but I was not there. So I just don't know.
What a bummer.
Right? Doesn't that suck? Like, you're so excited for this, and then that happens. Like, I got disappointed for her. I was like,
Yeah.
I totally get that, and that sucks.
And I'm sure you go into it with like it's going to be fine. We're at the beach. We're having fun. Like it's going to be okay. But like a whole summer is a long time for people you love. I
Yes.
don't know if I could spend a whole summer with my own family in a vacation house.
Yeah, let alone like, these
let alone people.
acquaintances.
Yeah, you don't know that well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like, regardless of how it happened, I mean, Dolores was just not down with the excessive drug use and the rough ass crowd that her friends were associating with. And like, I don't just mean like, oh, that kid's from the wrong side of the tracks. When I say rough crowd, like, I literally mean a gang, like the pagan biker gang. So, and this lovely biker gang, they were heavily involved in at least drug dealing. I'm sure there were several other things. But they were also involved in like hard drugs. I'm not just talking about like some weed here or there. So I'm sure for Dolores, this was such like a different world.
Yeah.
So according to several sources, Dolores was getting very uncomfortable with the heavy drug use happening around her, especially after there was a confrontation that broke out between her roommates and one of the drug dealers who believed that the roommates had stolen drugs, or one of the roommates' boyfriends had stolen the drugs. So after that confrontation, Dolores was like, I think I need to rethink my, like, I gotta go home, I gotta recharge and kind of rethink my decisions for this summer. So in early July, she decided to go with her parents on a 10-day vacation to Orlando, Florida, at the happiest place on earth, Disney World. So while Dolores is out there hanging out with Cinderella and Snow White, there was a lot of trouble brewing back at Forget-Me-Not Road. So while Dolores is away, it turns out that some of the drug-dealing gang members went back to the Wildwood bungalow and confronted the roommates about the missing drugs and the stolen money, whatever. And her roommates, these fucking assholes, because I refuse to call them her friends, they blamed Dolores for the missing drugs. So basically, because she wasn't there to defend herself, these assholes made up a story and threw her under the bus and was like, yeah, she totally stole the drugs, not us. When in reality, she had absolutely nothing to do with it. She wasn't even there. Like, she was literally the only innocent one. And this is the exact reason why she wasn't at the apartment. She didn't want to be involved. She wasn't involved. And I don't really know what these shitty bitches were thinking. Like, I feel like they were just kind of hoping the drug dealers would be like, oh, she's not here. You know what? No worries. It's totally fine. We're even. Have a good one. Spoiler alert. That's not what happened. So, on Monday, July 10th, 1972, Dolores and her family returned to their home in Philadelphia. The next day, which is Tuesday, July 11th, 1972, starts out like any other day. Dolores did some chores around the house. She painted her nails a really fun red color. She ran some errands, and she made plans to hang out with some friends like later that night. So a couple hours later, she's dressed, and like all the news articles were like, in typical 70s fashion, she was wearing, and they talk about like a rainbow halter top and like bell bottoms. So I was like, oh, she sounds so cute. So she's ready to go, and she asks her dad to drive her to one of her friends' house. And her dad's like, yeah, like, that's no problem, but why don't you just take the car? And Dolores just waved him off and assured him, she's like, no, I'll be fine. And that night really did start out fine. Dolores met up with some girlfriends. They hitchhiked to see the fiance of one of the girls. They were fine. And then she met up with some friends in the Kensing neighborhood. And by about 10:30 that night, Dolores knew it was time to start heading home. Like, because she had to be home. She had a midnight curfew. So in order to get home, she had to take a bus, and then she would transfer to a trolley, which would then drop her off just a few blocks, like, from her parents' house. And I believe that she and her friends from earlier in the night, like, they were all on the bus together, but then when it came to the trolley stop, they parted ways and went in their opposite directions. So this next part is, like, pretty much confirmed because it was corroborated by the trolley driver that night. He picked up a girl who we believe is Dolores, and at about 5 minutes till midnight, this girl, Dolores, got off at the intersection of Torresdale Avenue and North Street. She was only 3 blocks away from her home, but sadly, Dolores would not make it. So meanwhile, at the Della Penna home, just a couple blocks away, the clock strikes midnight, and Dolores' parents are still awake, because, like, even though she's kind of a grown-up, you know, they're still parents, and they're still gonna wait up for her, probably until she's, like, 50. So they're waiting for her to get home, and they realize it's midnight, and they're honestly, like, really surprised that Dolores isn't home. I don't think she was a frequent rule breaker, but as the night goes on and time passes and there's still no Dolores, her parents, Ralph and Helen, they're just getting more and more worried. They try to remain calm, like they know Dolores is responsible, but time is just ticking by, and I can imagine them both just like staring at the front door, maybe like waiting for the familiar sound of Dolores's keys would make, you know, when the lock opens. I feel like you're just sitting there like holding your breath, waiting for that sound.
And it is so hard because she is an adult. Like, yeah, you have a rule because you live in my house, but you don't want to go from 0 to 60. Like, she is an adult. Maybe she got caught up. Maybe the trolley was late. Maybe the bus was late. Like, you don't want to rush to chaos immediately.
Well, right. And especially when, like, they know she has her own place for the summer. So when she's there, she could be out till 4 a.m. Like,
yeah.
So, and I feel like this is just such a rough time in every teenager and parent's life, or like when you come home from like winter break from college, it's such a weird dynamic because you're like, I've been living on my own, and your parents are like, hey, you're still in the bedroom you were when you were in 2nd grade. So, so at some point, her parents call the friends that she was supposed to be meeting that night, and they're both like, yeah, we hung out, we did this, we did that, and then we said goodbye. And Dolores got on the trolley. So now Ralph and Helen are just in a full-blown panic. They just know something is wrong. And around 3 a.m., they call the police to report their daughter missing. So listeners, I'm going to take a break for a second because I want you guys to look at the map I put together. And we will post this on our socials. But basically, it's a screenshot of Dolores's Tacony neighborhood, and I put in like where I-95 and the Delaware River are just for reference. So in the green box, that's where in the green circle, that's where Dolores got off the trolley, and then the pink dot is her home. Those little red dotted lines is the route she took. Google says 3 to 4 minutes walking. That's how long it should have taken her to get home. Down North Street, right on Tulip Street, and bam, there's her house on Wall Street. So, back to the case. Dolores isn't home. It's 3 a.m. Ralph and Helen call the cops. From everything that I've read, it seems that the cops took this pretty seriously from the start. Like, I don't think there was any of that nonsense we usually hear about, oh, maybe she ran away or she'll be home soon. Like, they were pretty much straight away on it, which I think is wonderful. So I know that once the cops got the report, they went straight to the Della Penna's home to take the report shortly after like the initial phone call by her parents. And even though they took it seriously, like I do think at first they were like, this might be, but we still want to look into it. And then as soon as, like, the sun begins to rise across the city, police and Dolores' parents, they just get a feeling like she did not run away and that whatever happened to Dolores was really not good. Because now that it's light out, police can do a more thorough patrol of, like, the surrounding area. And what they found is just horrific. So just across the street from the Della Penna home, and I'm talking like less than 30 feet from their house, Dolores' maroon jacket that she had borrowed from one of her friends was laying on the ground.
Oh, wow.
Her parents both said, like, she had definitely been wearing it. They confirmed with a friend, like, yeah, that's mine. She borrowed it. And then a little further up on the sidewalk was a cross and a crucifix. And these were also determined to have belonged to Dolores because she had literally just gotten both as gifts for her high school graduation. And for some reason, this last item that they found, like, I feel like this is so haunting. They found a door key on the ground, and it was confirmed to be the back door key to the Della Penna home. Along with all this stuff, police also find 3 separate blood stains on the ground. So, like, I'm not a parent, but to imagine seeing your child's belongings and blood, like, that makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah.
And, like, she was so close. Like,
so
her
close.
key was out.
Yeah.
Like, she was so close.
Well, it gets worse. So, police start canvassing the neighborhood, and they're asking neighbors the usual questions. Like, did you see anything strange? Did you hear anything out of the ordinary? These freaking neighbors, most of them were like, oh yeah, we heard some screams, and it sounded like someone was screaming for help. Some neighbors even told investigators that they saw a woman being beaten. Others said they saw a bloodied and crying woman be dragged into a maroon-colored Chevy while kicking and screaming. And do you guys want to guess how many of these self-centered assholes called the police or went to, check on the girl screaming?
Well, clearly none, right? Because...
Zero.
Hey.
None of them called the police. None of them did anything. And apparently, one of the neighbors said something to the police about, oh, we thought it was just a domestic.
That's...
Because that makes it better.
That's no excuse.
I guess. Right?
That
that's
was
disgusting.
such the attitude back then. Like, you don't get involved. That's between a man and his wife.
That's so sick. Like, this case made me so mad because so many people just failed Dolores. Like, her crappy, lying frenemy apartment mates and all of her self-centered neighbors who just think spousal abuse is no biggie. So, over the next week or so, detectives and other members of law enforcement, they're coming at this case from every angle, and they were just pretty much stumped immediately. And of course, like, Dolores' family and friends, they are just praying that she's going to walk in the door, there's going to be some sort of silly explanation, and all's going to be fine. But sadly, those prayers were not answered, and on July 22nd, 1972, 11 days after Dolores went missing, a gentleman in New Jersey came across a gruesome scene that literally made him sick to his stomach. This guy, Steve, he works as a butcher, and he and his family had just arrived at their summer home in Jackson Township, which they weren't super far from Toms River, New Jersey. So, according to sources, Steve and the fam, they're unloading the car, which I imagine was a wood-sided station wagon, because this is the 70s, and, like, you're on family vacation, so I just feel like it has to be
Family
one.
truckster.
And I imagine it in, like, the pew screen color, so... And as they're unloading the car, their dog just goes running into the woods. Now, before I tell you where the dog goes and what he finds, do you guys know anything about the New Jersey Pine Barrens? Or also they can be referred to as the Pinelands?
Yeah, I'm familiar with them. That's where
you want to tell our listeners?
Well, I know that's where you drive through. It's like South Jersey. It's like super big. It's like foresty, but also like wetlands kind of. And it's because it's like such a coastal area. So is it 42? Shannon probably knows better. I feel like she's good at directions. So it's like when you drive down the shore, you drive,
or the parkway.
You drive 42, and I think that's like what you're driving through.
Yeah.
Yes. And also, like, anyone who's watched The Sopranos is probably like, oh shit, I know what that place is. Because, like Shan said, it's a huge, heavily wooded area. And, like, we mean huge, like 1.1 million acres. I checked that fact like 4 times because I didn't believe it, but it's 1.1 million acres. It spans across 7 different counties in Jersey, and this forest area / super fancy ecosystem. I didn't know, I was super confused because evidently I missed that day in earth science, but there's like all these like random like floras and faunas, and this forest area / fancy ecosystem accounts for 22% of New Jersey. Like, the entire state, it's 22% of it. Super huge, and actually, this is where the New Jersey Devil lives, and he hangs out there and does whatever he does, because I don't think we've ever covered him, but maybe for Halloween this year we should.
I do think that every time I drive down the shore, I think about the New Jersey Devil.
You're
and
like,
I'm always expecting him to, like,
me.
jump out of the, the trees.
Okay, well, Shan's going to have to tell us about the New Jersey Devil in our Halloween episodes this year. So he's in there hanging out, doing whatever, and then there's apparently a whole bunch of ghosts who haunt the forest too, and most disturbing of all, the Pine Barrens is allegedly, because I don't want to end up there, it's allegedly where the mob likes to dispose of things. So it's kind of scary, and I also heard that there are parts of it where people just like dump their old mattresses and broken appliances, and for some reason that grosses me out. So it's probably a place you don't want to hang out. So Steve and his fam, they're unloading the Woodside station wagon, and their pupper, a collie, and his name was Yuki. Yuki takes off, and Steven goes after him, and as Steven like is following Yuki and making his way further and further into like this thick forest, he's yelling for the dog, and he starts to smell something that makes his stomach turn. And keep in mind, it's July, summertime in New Jersey. It's hot. It's really humid. And the local police had actually gotten quite a few calls from people complaining about the odor kind of coming from this area.
And why didn't they go investigate it?
I have no idea. I feel like they were like, Febreze it, it's fine.
It's New Jersey.
It's New Jersey. It's just
it has a scent sometimes.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding.
So at this point, poor Steve is like choking back vomit. He's looking for the dog, and suddenly here comes Yuki with something in his mouth. And Steve's like, okay, it's probably a rabbit. But as Yuki gets closer, Steve realizes his dog is carrying around an arm. And as we often hear, he thought it was a mannequin. But he is obviously horrified to discover the arm is a human arm. The other arm is lying nearby, and that's when Steve sees the red polish on the fingernails. And I'm sure his poor little head is spinning at this point, because between what he is seeing and the stench, it had to have been so horribly overwhelming and like such a sensory overload. But then it gets worse. He looks like the other direction, and about 30 feet from where the arms were, there's a human torso on the ground.
It's so sad.
So one of the sources I relied heavily on was by Marty Z. Levy, and the way he described this scene that Steve saw is far better than I ever could. So Mr. Levy writes, quote, "At one time it had been a torso, the headless, limbless body of a human female. But now it was a carcass, little more than a bunch of bones wrapped around a spine. There was a hole at the top and a hole at the bottom and nothing in between." End quote. He then goes on to write, quote, "All of the insides had been taken out and the body had been skinned." End quote. That doesn't give everyone nightmares tonight. I'm not sure what will. And I, in these situations, always think about, like, I feel so bad for poor Steve. Like, this man is just trying to give his family a vacation, and he comes across this scene. He actually, after they called the cops, they immediately went home.
Yeah.
But I have to imagine that his life was probably never the same. And according to the truecrimedatabase.com, years later, Steve would be quoted as saying, I still see the hands at night every time I close my eyes, end quote.
Right.
So, and I feel like we forget about those people sometimes. Like, we're worried about the victim's family and, you know, how they can be counseled and helped and all this. And then, like, this poor guy, that's gotta just stay with you forever.
Yeah, you can't.
And it's always kind of, and it's always kind of trivialized in shows. Like, SVU is so good for, like, some lady rollerblading horribly in the park and stumbling upon a body, and it's, like, so casual, and, you know, they go to talk to them later, and they never want to talk about it. They're still, like, unbagging their groceries at home, like, and it's not trivial.
No, and I just, like, I felt like when I saw that quote from him years later, I was like, this poor man, so I just had to mention it. So Steve calls the police, and when investigators get to the scene, they are stunned at what they're seeing and just the level of violence inflicted on this body. And this was not the first body to show up in the Pine Barrens, nor was it the last. But the way the body was found was just so shocking and jaw-dropping. It left even these seasoned investigators just absolutely shook. And then, to make matters worse, the killer or killers had cut off the inner tips of the fingers, so IDing the body through fingerprints was now impossible. So, right away, the Jackson Township Police, they know this is huge, and they're going to need help. And I am so happy that they didn't have egos or that weird, like, this is my territory and my jurisdiction shit that, like, we always see. Like, they did such a good job. There's no little dick energy here. And they called in everyone they could. They got Philly cops involved, all the Jersey cops that they could get. They got state police involved. They even got the FBI involved. Like, I just think they did such a fantastic job of taking advantage of every asset that they had access to. They actually also used the media as much as possible by making sure that, like, all of Philadelphia and Jersey and Delaware and Maryland and all the surrounding areas knew about Dolores and, like, that, like, so they could see her face. And, I mean, it was pretty quick that they were able to identify the torso and arms. We know they're Dolores. And, like, we knew that was coming, but 17 years old. Like, just graduated high school. Like, she's a baby.
Yeah.
So, according to Mari Z. Levy, when the ME arrives on site, he had brought some x-rays with him, and I'm not sure if he just, like, grabbed some that belonged to missing people, or if he specifically grabbed Dolores's. It didn't really say in sources. But remember, you know, I told you how she wanted to be an x-ray technician due to the back and spine issues she had as a kid. Well, whatever work or, like, surgery she had done, it was distinctive enough that they could actually compare these x-rays to the spine left in the Pine Barrens.
Wow.
Which is so, like, ironic. Like, first of all, they tried to make it so she was going to be hard to ID, but, you know, they left the spine, and, like, this girl, like, her dream was to become an x-ray technician, and that's, like, what ended up IDing her. I just feel like that's so, I don't know, some weird cosmic thing. So over the next week and a half, all of these law enforcement agencies went hard. Like, they had tons of volunteers. They conducted foot patrols, grid searches. They had divers searching lakes and ponds. They went super deep in the Pine Barrens. At some point, Philly PD did bring, like, a young 20-something Port Richmond man in for questioning. I believe he was living out of his vehicle, and he had some interesting items in his possession, including a woman's purse. They found a knife and a hatchet, because who doesn't keep that in their car? So this guy ends up being a dead end and ultimately had nothing to do with Dolores, but I completely understand why, like, the cops saw him and, like, their spidey senses were tingling. So a little over a week after Dolores's torso and arms are found, so now it's about June 30th, an older gentleman is out walking his dog, and they come across a set of legs. And these would later be matched to Dolores. But What's crazy is that the legs were several miles away from where her torso and arms were. And I say several because I've seen many different numbers. So let's just say they were more than 8 miles away, but less than 20 miles away.
This is honestly, like, so sophisticated.
Right?
Like, the measures in the 70s to separate parts of her body from each other to make it harder to find, to kidnap her at her home when these may be people who knew her down the shore, and then also to remove the tips of her fingers so that she can't be identified that way. Like, for 1972, this is wild, in my opinion.
It really is. Like, I was reading this case, and like I said at the beginning, I was so amazed that we haven't covered this. Like, I feel like this is huge.
Yeah. It's just crazy. I can't, like, yeah, I don't know. And that I never heard of it. Like, it's just wild.
Yeah. Well, so now we have Dolores's, her body, but the police are still looking for her head, and this is awful, but not super long after the murder, a group of kids claimed they saw a head with dark hair floating in Dinosaur Lake, which, pause for a second, because I do have a fun fact.
Yeah,
Dinosaur Lake. Well, okay, so Dinosaur Lake, I've literally never heard of it, but it's where, like, current day Franklin Mills or Philadelphia Mills, whatever they're calling it this week, like, it's this little lake that had a little island in the middle, and it had dinosaur statues. I'm like, that's so cool. I totally would have gone there.
Yeah. I wish I had seen it. I want to see some dinosaurs.
I know, right? I'm like, why did we get rid of it? That sounds lovely.
Yeah.
So these kids are there playing. I'm sure they're having a blast. But unfortunately, they do say they see something in the water. And later they would say they think it was a head with dark hair. This gets back to the police. And they do, search the entire lake. They send divers, and they don't find anything. There's another theory about where her head is. And these are just rumors, but her head may be in the wall of one of the homes of her killers or killer. It could also be at one of their hangouts. And we will get to that in our next episode, because this is where we're going to stop.
Melissa.
So,
how rude
I know,
of you.
I'm leaving you hanging.
I hate a cliffhanger.
Dun, dun, dun. So, listeners, thanks for tuning in. You're going to have to wait till next week to hear the end of Dolores' story. If you could take a few seconds, subscribe, rate, we would be forever grateful. Bye.
Bye.
That's all we have for this episode of the Keystone Cold Cases podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and please consider leaving us a review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to find out more about us, the pod, and the cases we cover, or want to suggest a case, please visit us at kccpod.com or send us an email at keystonecoldcases@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook at Keystone Cold Cases and on Instagram and TikTok at KCCPod. Please remember never to reach out to family or friends of the victim, only to law enforcement if you have any tips. This episode was researched and hosted by me, Melissa. Find all of our sources, social info, and contact information at kccpod.com. Theme music from Darren Makins. Join us again next week for another case to sleuth out.